Beatles have sold 1.6 billion records in the US, 600 million albums worldwide, 177 million of them being from the US, and have received 7 Grammy Awards. I think you should listen because the Beatles is such an iconic band from the past that influenced music forever. So first, I'll tell you about the members and their history and how they formed the Beatles. Second, I will tell you their top 10 albums and top 10 songs that helped make them their success story. And third, I will tell you how they influenced music forever. So, John Lennon was born October 9th, 1940 in Liverpool, England, and he died December 8th, 1980 in New York City, New York. His full name was John Winston Ono Lennon, and he grew up with his Aunt Mimi and Uncle George in a house called Mendips. He kept in close contact with his mother, Julia Lennon, until her death in 1958, but had little contact with his father, Alf. His mom taught him to play banjo, and they shared a love of Elvis. The first song that he learned to play was Fats Domino's Ain't That a Shame. In 1957, he received his first guitar from his mom. His first school was Dovedale Primary School, and after passing his 11 plus, attended Quarry Bank Grammar School from 1952 to 1957. He formed the Quarrymen in March 1957, and in July 1957, he met Paul McCartney at the Garden Feet at St. Peter's Church in Woolton, Liverpool. They eventually formed the Beatles from there. Paul McCartney was born as James Paul McCartney on June 18, 1942, in Liverpool's Walton Hospital. His father, Jim, worked in cotton trade and played trumpet and piano in jazz and ragtime bands, and his mother, Mary, worked as a midwife. He attended Stockton Wood Road Primary School, then to Joseph Williams Junior School before passing his 11 plus in 1953 and gaining a place at Liverpool Institute. The next year, on a bus, he met George Harrison, who was also a student at Liverpool Institute. His old house is now a popular tourist destination. On October 31, 1956, his mother, Mary McCartney, died of an embolism following a mastectomy. She was a heavy smoker who was suffering from breast cancer. His dad gave him a trumpet after his mother's death. When skiffle became a popular craze, he traded it in for a 15-euro famous Zenith acoustic guitar, and he is left-handed, so he originally had trouble playing it. But he rearranged the strings and made it easier for him to play. He persuaded John Lennon to let George Harrison join the band as lead guitarist in 1958. George Harrison was born February 25, 1943, in the family home in Wavertree, Liverpool. His parents were Harold and Louise Harrison, who had roots in Ireland. They had 3 other children, Louise, Harry, and Peter, who were all older than George. George went to school at Dovedale Road, where he passed his 11 plus and gained a place at Liverpool Institute for Boys, a local grammar school. He attended there from 1954 to 1959. He struggled as a student and left without any qualifications. In 1959, he formed a skiffle group called the Rebels with his brother Peter and a friend, Arthur Kelly. His mom bought him a guitar for €3. In 1958, he met the Quarrymen, which included Paul McCartney. Ringo Starr was born as Richard Starkey on July 7, 1940, in the Dingle area of Liverpool. His parents split up when he was 3, and his mother remarried a man named Harry Graves. He encouraged Ringo's passion for music. Ringo spent long stretches in the hospital, once for a coma that was caused by appendicitis, a cold which caused pleurisy, and various allergies and intolerances to foods. His illnesses made him fall behind academically, and he didn't return to school after an illness at the age of 13. He co-founded the Eddie Miles Band, which later became Eddie Clayton and the Clayton Squares. In 1959, he joined the Raving Texans. It was while playing in these Liverpool bands that he gained the nickname Ringo Starr, the first part due to the rings he wore, and the second because his solos, which Ringo performed reluctantly, could be billed as Star Time. He met the Beatles in Hamburg in October 1960. He became their drummer after they fired Pete Best, and he was a left-handed drummer playing on a set made for a right-handed man. So now I will tell you the top 10 albums and top 10 songs that made them such a success story. I'm going from 10 and down. Please Please Me, 1963. Magical Mystery Tour, 1967. Let It Be, 1970. A Hard Day's Night, 1964. Help, 1965. Abbey Road, 1969. The Beatles, 1968. Rubber Soul, 1968. Revolver, 1966, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, 1967. Their top 10 songs, going from 10 and down again: Something, Eleanor Rigby, In My Life, Strawberry Fields Forever, While My Guitar Gently Weeps, Here Comes the Sun, Yesterday, A Day in the Life, Let It Be, and Hey Jude. So now, how they influenced music. These will be 10 innovations that the Beatles did to music. 10 was music video. They were the first to really introduce music video, whether like live performances or not, because nobody had ever really done that before, except for them. They were the first ones. 9 was concept album. It was a live performance, but it was on a CD. So you could hear exactly what the live performance was, but it was on a CD instead. 8, stadium concert venues. They were the first musical group to perform in a stadium to 55,000 screaming fans, mostly girls, obviously. But nobody had ever performed in like a football stadium ever before, up until when they did. 7 was self-contained record label. They eventually made their own record label called Apple Records after their original record deal expired. 6 was a live television broadcast. Although the Beatles did not invent satellite television, they were the highlighted subject of the first ever live global satellite television broadcast in June 1967. The TV program was called Our World, and it featured the contributions of artists and citizens of 19 different nations. Using 4 different orbiting satellites, the program was able to be broadcast live to anyone interested in receiving the signal anywhere in the world, and the Beatles performed in an in-studio live version of All You Need Is Love, which was specially written by John for the broadcast to close out the program. 5, chart success. Although many different musical acts hold variously scattered chart-topping marketing successes, no specific artist has ever come close to the nearly inexplicable global phenomenon the Beatles enjoyed in the spring of 1964. On March 21st, the Beatles held 1, 2, and 3 in Billboard's Hot 100 for a total of 7 songs in that week's poll. On March 28th, they held 1, 2, 3, and 4, 10 songs in all, in that week's Billboard Hot 100. On April 4th, they staggeringly held 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 for a total of 12 songs in the Billboard Hot 100. On April 11th, the Beatles added 2 more songs to the Billboard Hot 100, 14 in all. During this same time frame, they were also snagging most of the album and singles top 10 lists in the UK, Canada, and Australia. 4, studio techniques. The Beatles and their recording engineers either pioneered or popularized artificial double tracking, or ADT, backmasking, tuned feedback, spliced audio loops, distortion, equalization, stereo effects, multi-tracking or overdubbing, compression, phase shifting, and innovative microphoning. Although the Beatles are not credited with the invention of most of these studio tricks, they were responsible for directly inspiring countless musical acts that were desperate to copy their unique sounds. 3, lyrics printed on the album. The first pop album to feature actual printed lyrics on the album was the Beatles' 1967 epic release, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Soon it would be considered non-standard to not do so. 2, no touring. The typical music industry standard recording contract of the 1960s required a band to record and release enough singles for a company to release at least 1 album per year, and the Beatles went way above and beyond the call of duty. They released 2 albums per year and every year with EMI Records except 1966. Another aspect of the standard recording contract required a band to give a prescribed number of public concerts as a highly effective means to promote and sell the band's singles and albums. However, in August 1966, at Candlestick Park in San Francisco, the Beatles played their last public concert after over 6 years of extended touring. The decision for the Beatles, or any band for that matter, to end touring was a breathtakingly landmark decision, and theirs was based on multiple factors, such as exhaustion, inability to perform newest songs in a live format, inability to hear themselves on stage, wandering music focus, safety concerns following death threats and boycotts, and boredom. The Beatles would only make 1 more public musical appearance, and it would come in January 1969 in the form of an impromptu, semi-private concert on the rooftop of their London studios. 1, American FM radio. By 1968, the American radio dial preferred to have music on AM and talk radio on FM, and most AM stations played music in a 3-minute single format. This meant that any singles significantly longer or shorter than 3 minutes were ignored by AM stations, because it would wreck their repetitive hourly format to play it. When the Beatles released Hey Jude as a single in August 1968, it was nearly 7.5 minutes long, and the AM station simply chopped off the song at the 3-minute mark, which denied listeners the chance to hear their favorite part, na 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 na. At KSAN FM in San Francisco, radio pioneer Tom Donahue used the promise of a whole Hey Jude single, coupled with other innovative ideas, commercial-free blocks of music, playing whole album sides at a time, etc., as a means to lure listeners away from local AM stations to his uniquely programmed FM station, and the idea eventually snowballed across the country. Within 10 years, American radio stations had almost completely switched places and put music on FM and talk radio on AM. So today I told you about the members of the Beatles and how they formed. Second, I told you about the top 10 albums and their top 10 songs. And third, I told you about how they influenced music forever. So the next time you say you don't like the Beatles or you say you haven't heard of the Beatles, please go reconsider your thoughts or go listen to them because they are amazing.